Hey everyone, welcome to Starr Mazer TV. I'm Auston Montville, the game developer of Starr Mazer, and we're going to do another coding session. So we just spent a couple hours earlier today taking a look at the basic event system. We took a look at making enemy patterns, and we made some cool like bullet patterns and new enemy patterns and whatnot. And so when we left off, I asked what you all wanted to look at, and a bunch of people responded with lasers. So we're going to take a look at how we implemented lasers into Starr Mazer, and we're going to add a laser to one of the enemy types in the game. But one of the things I want to mention is that we are now past 150,000, which is insane, and we have over 4,000 people backing Starr Mazer, which is just thank you. Like it's ridiculous. It's awesome. So things we're so close. We're almost there. So we're gonna take a little bit of time to look at what is the exact process that's going to go into making this game that you're supporting. So if you're not familiar, you'll have to follow us along for a little bit because we've already sort of dove into some of the specifics of this. If you missed out on that, don't worry, they'll be up on Starr Mazer on the YouTube channel, so you'll be able to check it out later. So if you don't understand everything that's going on, don't worry about it too much. But we're gonna sort of just dive right into this because I really want to get to creating a lot of awesome stuff right here. In addition, I'm the only one managing the chat, so please ask questions. If you can use brackets to say like to quote questions or put lots of question marks there so I can see it scrolling by. But I'm going to do a little bit of development and go back to the questions and back and forth. We're going to start off and we're going to show how lasers are implemented in the game. So we actually already have lasers done by a couple of enemies, and I'm going to show you what that looks like a little bit. So what I'm doing here is I'm moving around in Unity, and there's this thing called the enemy big, which just shoots some lasers. So we're going to just drop into the game and see what this thing can do. So it plays this cool animation and blasts a bunch of lasers, and it'll hit the Star Wolf if you run into laser beams, and that's it. And so this thing just fires once because we're not spawning it in the normal way like in the shmup levels. I just sort of dropped it in to show an example, but that's sort of the laser beams it fires. So we're going to put one of these laser beams on the destroyer. So the destroyer is a large enemy. We're going to go over to our scene view and check it out. And so this guy this is one of the ones that you might have seen in the trailer. It normally fires these bullets that come out of the sort of top and bottom spots of it, but it has this really cool like giant glowing front thing, and I always thought a giant laser should come out of that, so we're going to put a laser right in there. The way lasers work is they're much more complicated than the muzzles that we had previously. Muzzles just sort of spawn bullets, and bullets take care of themselves. But for lasers, there's a bunch of pieces that you want to do with it. You want to actually start up an animation, have it charge, and then the laser has to fire, and the laser has to have mechanics to be able to fire a beam and then collide against objects and then have a head at the end of that. So we already have some examples of lasers. We're going to sort of follow along with that step by step to put the laser into this one. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new game object in here that is going to be our front laser. And I like to spell laser with a Z. It sounds like that, so I know I'm spelling it totally incorrectly, but I'm just keeping with tradition now. So that's the way I'm doing that thing. We're going to have some animations on there. And it has been a little while since I've put a laser into the game, so I'm basically referencing one of the previous ones I've updated before. There's a couple of pieces to the laser, so we're going to start dropping those pieces in. And those are basically just various graphical parts of the laser. We sort of have the charge bit of the laser, which will be a couple of sprites that sort of just set us up for the charge animation of the laser as the enemy's preparing it. Because of the way that this thing is designed, we're actually going to use the same charge that's on the boss. So this giant blue one here is what we're going to be loading up. So we're going to make a new charge here. Actually, this is going to be implementing very similar to the boss one. So I'm going to take out the big and bring in the boss for reference so we can just keep looking at that one. That's big. Here's the boss. All right. So the boss's charge, we have a whole bunch of components that we're going to add on this. So I'm going to explain these components as I add them on, so you sort of have an idea of what's going on with this thing. First, we're going to go into complete 2D view, and we're going to move that laser right in front. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a Toolkit 2D sprite. And 2D Toolkit is a package you can buy in the asset store that helps you manage 2D objects in Unity. It's what I used to ship Sports Ball. It's been a great tool, and it's not too affordable. It's not too expensive, so it's something I really like. It's got a bunch of great functionality to it. And we're going to go ahead and find our bullet collection. These are a bunch of collections of different sprites in the game, and you want to separate those to sort of make your game run a little more efficiently. So I have to find the one with the actual laser in it, and that is bullet collection. So we've got a whole bunch of bullets in here. We're going to just start off with that first sprite. So when I add on the 2D Toolkit sprite, it adds a bunch of things in here. It actually ends up adding a mesh renderer and a mesh filter, so we can actually see that there's this glowing green thing out here. This is actually the mesh that's going to be rendering the sprites, and it's got some extra collision information on there. In fact, we have a mesh collider with it. We don't want a mesh collider though. I'm just going to remove that component because we don't need that. The collision is going to happen with the actual beam, and not necessarily with the charge. So I know there's one in here, but we're not going to use that for now. We'll actually add a simple collider on it later. That's left over from some pixel perfect testing that I was doing. We need to add on a Sprite Animator to actually go ahead and animate the sprite. It's pretty self-explanatory. Same sort of idea. We have a bunch of animation groups, and we can figure out which one we want to do, and this is going to be the charge one. So this is, if we just play this right now, let me move the enemy into screen. We'll shut off the boss. I'll bring the destroyer in. The reason why the Star Wolf is so big there is because it's set up so it can load in at the correct size if we go into the narrative sections with brick there. But as soon as we actually start the game, those will disappear because it loads in the shmup section. And so we've got our destroyer right there. And the charge normally would be playing at this point, which it has charged up, but we can't see it, so I've got to make sure that it's in the right layer to make sure that's visible. We have the ability to sort 2D objects through depth, and right now we are not rotated. That's the right direction of it. So let's go ahead and set that rotation correctly. We actually rotate the world 90 degrees in Starr Mazer to make you take advantage of navigation meshes in Unity. That's a topic for another time. But sweet, we got that charge happening, which is, so we're already part of the way there. We're actually a little bit off. We kind of want to have it a little bit further ahead. So we're going to remember on negative 115 is where we want to position that laser. Sweet, so we have the first part, we have the charge. Let's go ahead and keep chugging along and see what other aspects of it. So we actually need the beam itself, and this is the actual laser beam that is going to stretch across the screen and collide with whatever it impacts. So it's pretty similar. We're going to have another 2D Toolkit sprite. I'm going to just duplicate this because it's going to be a lot easier. Let's get our beam in there, and we're going to change it to, instead of the fire animation, we're going to get to the beam animation, which will cycle between a couple of sprites to give it this cool, like, flickering beam effect. We'll take off the automatic play in there. Let's make sure I'm not forgetting anything on it. We also need the, alright, so yeah, we need a couple other aspects to actually make collision happen with it, and deal damage to the player when they collide it. So I'm going to add on a couple of scripts here. First, we're going to add an actual box collider. Contrary to popular belief, you can actually do most really solid collisions with just simple box colliders. A lot of people really aim for pixel perfect, and that was much easier to do on older hardware, because you could actually, I mean, like, you can actually do it if you have your own custom engine, when you can directly access the pieces of when you can directly access the buffer and get those pixels directly. Otherwise, you have to sort of do it in a roundabout way in Unity. But most games, you don't really notice if it's not super pixel perfect. Boxes and circles can do an amazing amount of granularity with collision detection. So we're just going to throw blocks on here. We'll adjust it later as we actually go through the animation and make sure it's the right size. We'll also add one on our beam. See, so we got our charge, we got our beam. Make sure I adjusted the right thing. Yep. There we go. Now it's scaled to the right size. And we'll have to line these up later. That's the other thing. Because the lasers are built of individual pieces, we have to make sure that they're all lined up. And I just hope, one thing is that we did adjust the resolution of this stream, so hopefully it is running much better on your computers. Before we were doing 1920 by 1200, now we're down to 720p, which should be a little more manageable. So far I don't see anyone mentioning about that too much, so it looks like it's fine. But yeah, so it should be a little bit better running on your computers. So we've got the collision boxes in there, and then we need to actually add the damage bit. So we'll keep focusing on the charge right here. We're going to add the damage collision script, which is just manages actually dealing damage to the player. In Starr Mazer, we have all sorts of different damage types that we can do. This one's actually a bullet from the enemy, and how much damage it actually does. We're set 1 for now. We'll balance all that stuff later when we get closer to detailing the gameplay. Destroy and collide makes it so that we can have the bullet actually get destroyed when it hits anything. This is great for smaller bullets, but for lasers, we want them to keep powering through, so we're going to leave that unchecked. And then we need to add our Sprite Hook. This is a little hack that I made. We use the legacy animator for Unity, and you don't have access to certain variables with 2D Toolkit into the legacy animator in real time while you're like actually editing it. So I made this little script that can just actually override that. So when I link this in here, it will actually override some of the values that we have here, set it to black, and set the scale to 0. So we'll just set those back. And now this thing is ready to be animated, which will be important as we... Alright, and we are back. It looks like 2DX headquarters internet is not quite as strong as Imagos, so we kind of pop up at the end here. And welcome back to round 3 of the stream connection. I will just go in and keep adding aspects to this laser here as I explain components in a moment. But I want to make sure that stream is on. I can see the stream over to my left, and it looks like it just popped in because there's a little bit of delay. But you should be hearing me now, and we should be good. Let's hope the internet's hold out for this, because we got a lot of lasers to build. We need the internet to see this. Alright, so we've got our collider. We have our animator on here. The next thing we're going to be adding is the actual beam script. Beams have a whole bunch of custom scripts made for them. These are all things that I wrote to be able to manage the actual laser aspects of this. So we've got our beam, we got our beam view. We'll need a sprite hook to do some animation. All right, we'll link that up. So the sort of more important aspects of this are the actual the beam and the beam view, because that's what actually handles the laser aspect of it. A lot of this gets controlled by animation and the actual firing of the enemy. But we can set a bunch of things in here, so I'm going to just go ahead and start assigning these things. First, we need to actually look at the origin of the beam itself. So where it's going to be firing from. And this is important because we do what's called a raycast, where we just send a line out in 3D space, and when it collides with something, then we know we've hit something, and we actually use that raycast to render the laser. Max beam length, we're going to start it at 1 because it's going to grow over time. Let's see here. We want it to collide with the player. Beam angle, we're going to leave that at 180, I think, because this is the direction that we're firing the beam in. Yeah, so we're going to fire it straight forward. And we'll worry about that damage collision stuff later. The actual beam view, we need to attach all of these beam components. And the last part we need, which we haven't created yet, is a head. So this is the end of the beam. It actually has to be a separate object because that needs to get placed at the wherever the beam is colliding with something. So you get this cool effect of the beam like splattering against it. Not that we have all of those awesome assets right now, but still, it's better to have something in there than nothing. So let's go ahead and attach our beam head. Well, we need to add a sprite to it. We actually didn't even use a beam head for that because I actually don't have a sprite. I'm going to put in a filler sprite right now. So it'll look a little off because we actually don't have a head sprite for the beam that gets fired from the boss. But we will add some filler for the moment. Let's see here. Sure, we'll go with this one, just so we can see something there. We can see it working. If we don't like it, we'll take it out. All right, so we got our beam there. The beam width is 16 pixels, and the head reduction. The head reduction determines how large the head is, so we'll adjust that when we get into it. All right, so beams, the actual firing process, we need to play an animation of it charging up and then expanding the beam and then actually taking care of the calculations of the beam colliding with everything. So we actually use another event like we used earlier before to spawn enemies. We can use the same sort of event system to drive firing a beam. Before I get into that, I'm going to just take a look over at the stream and see if anyone's been asking questions. We've had a whole bunch of things pop up, so I want to make sure that I don't get too far into it before we going in. Apparently Laser Kid hates the Z's in lasers. Yeah, I'm the worst. I'm just awful. You're just gonna hate. There's gonna be nothing but Z's all over this place. Let's see here. Jackaruni's got a bit of a thing, so I'm going to read this. Just watched your previous stream. Don't know if anyone mentioned it, but when you were messing with the spread angle, you said there was a bug at 360 but the code was working as it should. I gather the code is saying that the shots are spread out equally at the range and your defined angle in the forward-facing direction. So when it's 316, the first and last bundle is 360, hence overlapping. That's actually one of the things I just took a look at, and Jackaruni, you're absolutely correct. I was considering whether or not I'm going to get rid of those overlaps or not, because I don't necessarily want the doubles there. But basically, the way we're going to avoid that is just whoever's implementing it, they're going to not use 360. They'll use a lower number of bullet spreads, so it spreads evenly. We don't get bullets stacking. Let's hear Toshigami. You've apparently, if that's okay that you've missed a bunch of Starr Mazer TV streams. We have them all up on our YouTube channel. It's just YouTube/C/Starr Mazer, so you can watch them at your leisure. They're always a little more exciting live, so I'm glad you're around for this one. But yeah, you can always check out those previous ones. So Rex705 asks, will the shmup parts have changing angles, or is it just side-scrolling? I played a shmup before that changed the direction of the action from up to down to its side. You'll be navigating in lots of different spaces, so it will still stay a 2D view, but you will not just always be scrolling left to right, if I got that correct on the camera. Yeah, there will be lots of directions that you go into. We will be committing some shmup heresy with the direction of the ship. If you're familiar with Defender, you might know what I'm talking about. And then there was the upset about the stream dropping, because that happened a couple times. But my internet seems to be stable now. Let's hope it holds out for the rest of this. If not, we'll just keep popping back on. Sweet. I don't see... Here we go. We've got a question for everyone. How many of you guys planning to back talking about Kickstarters in the stream? So talk about all things you back. You mentioned this game called Starr Mazer. I don't know. Maybe some people have heard about it. Let's see here. Oh yeah, and Triptide's also promoting the IRC, which we're going to talk about in the next update. But it's a channel to be able to talk with everyone outside of whenever we're not necessarily on Starr Mazer TV. You guys can all just hang out together and talk about whatever it is you want to talk about in there. So you can go check that out. And Fizuski is announcing that we have just over $7,000 to go to get Starr Mazer funded. This is very exciting. This is a pretty awesome day, guys. Like, thank you everyone so much. This is so awesome. We might be celebrating tonight. We might be having a big party tonight. Not that we are not going to party on Friday, which is our 24-hour stream, but yeah, we're getting to celebration times. This is really cool. But until then, we are caught up. We'll talk about celebrations later. Right now we have to talk about lasers. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new event to actually fire this beam. And then later, we'll create an event to stop it. Event fire laser. All right. Laser Kid for you. Laser. We'll start spelling it right. Just for you, Laser Kid. All right. So we're going to add an event sequence, which is what manages doing an event. We're going to call this event fire laser destroyer. It's just habit for me to spell it with a Z. All right, now we'll just fire it from the beginning just so we can test it out, make sure it works. And we want to add a delay there. I'm getting myself familiar with the last event that I ran for making the boss laser, because it's going to be essentially the same idea. And there are lots of pieces to it. As you notice, this is like a super long event. There's lots of details here. So I want to make sure that we get everything right. So we're going to just start putting these events into it. First thing we want to do is put in a trigger which manages when the event's actually going to happen. And we're just going to make it happen right at the beginning. Then next we're going to do a little bit of a delay. And the reason why we're doing a delay is because it takes Unity a moment to load up. You won't see this when the game is actually built, but in the editor there's a bit of a stutter on it. So we just want to make sure that we don't miss that graphic, which is why we're going to put in a delay there. We'll take that out when we're actually implementing the weapon for the enemy to fire. And then we'll put in a sprite animation for the boss. Well, that's the boss open ring, so we don't need that because that's just boss specific stuff. Because the boss opens up its protective ring and then it opens up its mouth to fire the laser. What we're interested in is setting a game object active. Because we want to actually turn on the charge. That's going to be the first thing. And actually, all of these things are going to start deactivated. So they won't be turned on when the destroyer is created, but then it will eventually fire up. I'm just going to get this Star Wolf. We're gonna adjust the Star Wolf to its regular size so it doesn't take up all the space on the screen here, and all you see is like 4 pixels of the Star Wolf. We have it scaled up. There we go. This is how big the Star Wolf is in normal shmup mode. So we'll go put that over there. And Brick, you can just sort of go out of the way here. We want to focus on the ships. There we go. Now we can see the thing that we're working on. This destroyer here is what we're spending our time making the laser for. Alright, so we're going to turn on the charge, and then the charge itself has to manage some stuff. I think that's going to happen next. Yeah, so we're going to play the spray animation. It'll actually be an animation on the charge. And so this one, just to look at it, has the grow and then the dissipate. Yeah, so the grow is pretty simple. We just modify a value over time, which is the max beam length. We go from 0 to 400, which creates this effect of the beam growing. It happens very quick, just in 10 seconds, a fraction of a second. So let's go ahead and make sure we add that animation there. Actually, I think I can just use the same one as opposed to creating a whole nother one. I'll just need to find my animation scripts, which is on the boss laser itself. There's a sprite animator, laser boss fire charge. Oh yeah, that's to actually trigger the first for triggering the sprite animation. Forgot about that. That's this thing right here. I'm thinking about the growing animation. We're going to get to that in a moment, but that will not be right next. This is a sprite animation. We have basically 2 types of animations that we can do in the engine at the moment right now, which are sprite animations and cutscenes. Cutscenes are also animations, but they're just more elaborate ones that can control multiple objects, whereas a sprite animation just affects one sprite. And that's what we're working with right here. So the actual animation we want to play is called Laser Boss Fire Charge on that animator. Sorry, this one's totally spelt wrong, Laser Kid. And that one takes more time to fix, so we're just going to leave it like it is. Laser Boss Fire Charge. Alright, we're going to let that go. There's a bunch of other properties on here that are, some of them are familiar from the events that you saw in the last one. Others are just identifiers, but the animation duration, we'll leave that at -1, means it'll just last the entire time of the animation. Because we don't necessarily know how long an animation is going to be. That could be dynamic, so we don't want to set in a hard number on there in case the animation changes, or in case the animations change, then we want to be able to allow for any adjustments in it. All right. Next thing, then we've got the boss blast cutscene. We're not gonna do that. This next bit is a cutscene that actually moves the boss backwards when it fires the laser. We don't want the destroyer to be shaken by it. It's not the destroyer is meant to do this, so we're not gonna put that in there. Then we do need to actually turn the beam on. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So what we're doing here, once again, is this is just a sequence of events. So everything that I put in is going to happen in sequence in the game. And this is going to be the entire sequence for the animation of firing the laser. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the beam itself. We'll work with the head later. Once again, we don't have the right graphic for it, so it'll look a little odd. I might not end up even doing that. The laser fires fast enough that you don't necessarily notice it. All right, we've got the blast, we've got the beam turned on. Then we need to do the firing charge on the actual charge itself. Yes. All right, so we've got the next set of the sprite animation to put into here. Which is, I forgot its name, Laser Boss Fire Charge. No, that was the first one. Laser Boss Fire Ring Charge. Completely different animation. Verbs, they're a thing. All right, and let's see here. We have to actually grow the laser. Then we're going to do another sprite for the fire. That's on the boss sprite, so we don't actually have to do that. That's another sprite animation for the boss individual itself. Eventually we will have an animation for the destroyer, but right now we don't have assets for that. And then we're going to start a subsequence, which is a stop laser. We'll do that last. So the last thing we need to do is just do the laser grow animation, which actually is on the laser itself. So it's going to be this one right here. And we can just go ahead and grab that animation. Let's see here. Laser boss grow. And we'll need laser dissipate later. Oh, we'll need boss dissipate. Because it's the boss laser. So we're going to add the cutscene in here. Laser boss grow. We'll attach this actually animation component, and we should be good. Next thing we need to do is set the order for all these so they happen in sequence. So we're going to just increment these along, because this number right here determines the order that these events are going to take place. So you can just change the number if you'd like to order them differently. Eventually we'll have an order auto sort. That'll be a nice little feature that I add in later, but not at the moment. Okay, so this should go ahead and fire up. We're going to make sure the rest level doesn't turn on. But yeah, let's go try this out and let's see where we're at. We're still going to have to do a bunch of work based off this, but this should get the animation started working. Then we're going to have to position things together. So I'm going to play this, and it's not going to look really great, but it should be functional. So let's take a look at what we have so far. And we have nothing firing. So we got to make sure that the see if that even played, which we do have event fire laser destroyer, so it is going ahead and trying to play it. And it got all the way up to event 4, in which case it stopped. So let's go take a look at event 4. So this is our console here. This lets me know what's going on in the sequence. So every time something doesn't happen as expected, I can just take a look at that, which will save us lots of time, as opposed to having to guess what it is. So where is our destroyer? Don't need all those bullets. Got a lot of bullets on screen. Here we go. So if we go in the event fire laser and we look at sequence part 4, it is the actual sprite animation of the laser boss firing charge. And for some reason it didn't play that. So let's go look into this. It's not actually at firing charge. So it didn't get modified. I wonder if it didn't grab the actual object, if it knew that it was supposed to get this one. It's talking to the charge just fine. The charge is enabled, so it should be able to access it. So we have to find out why that was not the next step. The thing could be that it didn't finish this event. No, because it kept playing it. So it is actually there. We are grabbing the right object. We're going to have to dive deeper in this. Make sure I spelt it right. This could be my problem with spelling things incorrectly. Laser boss firing charge. Looks like it's spelled right. So that's still good. We can dive into the actual code to see exactly what's going on. Let's play it a little bit longer and see if it doesn't start up. Yeah, it's not moving at all. So we're going to have to go in there and see what's going on with this specific event. This is a event sprite animation. So we're going to get to go look at some code here. I'm not going to go ahead and explain all this because there's a lot of details here. But let's go just make sure a couple of things are happening. So I'm just going to put out some logs here so I can see what's going on and make sure that everything we expect to be going on is going on. See, we are waiting for the event to complete, so let's go ahead and play this and see if I get some more information in our logs. Sweet, so we got all the way here, but we didn't make it to this next one because we are waiting for the event to complete. Animation duration does not equal -1. That is where my code is because it does equal -1, which means it's completely skipping over this as if we didn't want to wait for it. So let's just go ahead and set that animation time to 0. I made some modification to this code recently, and so I'm guessing that I set something completely incorrectly. And we're still not getting a play. Let's take a look at what this is happening exactly. Now you get to see me solve problems. Not as engaging, but very necessary. We are waiting for the event to complete, which means the first bit is true. And the animation sort of statement, duration. I am not on the right one. I'm looking at cutscene. Here we go. That's why I modified the wrong variable. There's a lot of events in here. There we go. We should be firing something now. And we're still not moving. Let's give ourselves a little bit more information. Yeah, we're still set to -1 on that. Did I set it while we were running the game? There's a -1 in here. Yep. You could have already been in the stream telling me that, oh, you set the wrong number again, Austin. But I can't read all that stream. Sweet. Now we've got something. Laser Bros Crow could not be played, could not be found. These are weird errors. Those are like actual issues that I got to solve. So I couldn't find the animation we were looking for, which was Laser Bros Crow. And the reason why is because I need to spell laser correctly. No, it's not going to save. Sweet. So we have a sequence of events playing, but you're looking at this and going, Austin, but it doesn't look any different. It looks the same. We have to find out why this laser is not actually in view. So you've got a sprite there, and we have one here, and what I'm guessing is that they're not in the right ordered layer. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that layer determines sort of where it appears. And we want to make sure that it appears in the right direction. So this thing's at -18,000, so maybe we actually have to adjust these sprites to be at about that same level. Let's go ahead and put there. So this is their depth, how close or far away they are, because they're actually all, if we take a look here, everything's flat. Starr Mazer is just a bunch of flat sprites, but there needs to be some way to determine which order they render in, which ones get rendered behind the others. That's what this order and layer thing is. And I think that's why we're not seeing the laser. So I just made an adjustment there. Let's see if anything pops up. And it's still not showing, so we need to find out exactly what's going on. We have some values here that are not set quite correctly, and that could be it. Normally when we're adjusting the position of things, we want it to be flat. Any adjustments in the Y value will make it display incorrectly. Of course, we need to make sure that they're also rotated correctly as well. The head wasn't, but the charge and the beam were as well. I mentioned earlier that we rotate our world 90 degrees so we can take advantage of nav meshes. So let's see what that gets us. Still not displaying it. Now we're seeing the actual sprite there, but it's not getting rendered. So I gotta find out why it's not getting rendered. It could be the actual rendering layer, but that looks good. I know why. When I hooked it up to the hook, I said it took all the properties of it. I forgot that it also takes the transparency value. Now we can actually see that in there. We actually want to make it this dark color. It's because we have a flash shader on there. These are all notes. I'm glad it's being recorded, so everything that I forget to do, I can remember to make that easier and not the default. Because if I'm forgetting it, other people are going to forget it. And I'm the one who built this stuff. Sweet, so we got a thing there. It's animating, but boy is that not working super well. So now we have to actually go ahead and finish up this whole laser implementation. We need to make sure the laser's moving at the right distance, that the charge plays correctly. There's a bunch of other pieces to it. I'm going to go ahead and turn off those enemies in the shmup traveling, or the shmup mission itself, because I'm not really interested in looking at those enemies spawn by. This is something that we went over in the previous one. We'll just set it to 0. I think that'll cause nothing to break. Normally the game expects you to have at least one thing. Sweet, so we're still good there. So now we actually have to make this laser grow. So I said that we could put the boss, the laser boss grow animation on here, but I'm actually incorrect. This laser is set up in a different hierarchy than the boss laser, and so this one's not going to work. As you can see, there's a red value here. So we need to actually make a new animation here, which is fine. It's super easy to do. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at Unity's animation editor. I'm not going to go into too many details because there's a lot of aspects to it. But if you're familiar with something like Flash or the timeline editor in Photoshop, you might understand a little bit what's going on. Basically, we're just going to edit some values over time. It's fairly straightforward. Actually, before we dive into this is a pretty good milestone, and I think there's a bunch of questions going up. So we're going to talk about I'm going to answer some questions before we get too deep into this. Let's see here. Serbius is asking what the model is made out of the Star Wolf or the Sunspear model. Those are going to be 3D printed, made out of some sort of plastic. We don't know the exact materials that we're going to be making them out of right now. It'll determine a lot about, like, you know, the final costs of it and what's the best material for it, what applies well, what holds well to paint. So yeah, we got to figure out all those details. Let's see here. Christopher D asks, how do you audit all the temporary things, like the delay you added to the editor throughout the game? So this is a little bit broad, but the temporary things, like the delay you added for the editor throughout the game. Oh, okay, that delay, I didn't add that to the editor. Just basically whenever I hit this play button, you'll notice I hit play right now and it takes a moment to load up everything. That's because Unity is actually initializing everything. By the time we see this screen pop up, it's actually already loaded things and it's playing a few seconds. That's just because we don't have a loading screen implemented and we're just hard loading into it. Normally we'd put a loading screen when the loading finishes, then we present it to you so you see it smoothly. You'll notice in some games they might not necessarily wait till all loading is complete. An example of this is a lot of early Unreal Engine games, for the Unreal 3 engine. You'd see texture popping because they didn't finish loading everything before they got you into the game. So think about sort of all along the same lines as that. In the editor, it doesn't really matter. In the game, you won't see such stuttering. All right, the final code or be forgotten. I don't know exactly. I think you're following up on this, Christopher. It's basically just the engine's loading things up. So I hope that answers that for you. If not, ask me to clarify that. Serbius asking, in all honesty, Austin, should I go broke for the T-shirt? Dude, look at that. Yeah, that's gonna be on your body. I think it's gonna be pretty sweet. It's also a backer only T-shirt, so this is your opportunity to get it. But Serbius, I understand money's like a thing and whatnot, so don't make yourself go bankrupt. But if you can figure out a way to earn some extra cash, yeah, totally go for it. More questions. Someone's asking Serbius a question about the cheetah, man. I'm not familiar with these, except for the cheat. But you'd have to grow up as a kid in the 2000s to probably know about that. All right, sweet. We are caught up with all the questions. So I'm going to write that. And we're going to go back into building lasers. So we need to make an animation so the laser beam actually grows over time. So we're going to go ahead and create a new animation. We're just going to call this Destroyer Laser Grow. We need to go ahead and find that actual laser property. So what basically here is, this is a timeline editor. This right here, I can edit values over time. I am adding a curve, which is just adding a variable to edit. We're going to go into the beam script and we're going to go into the max beam length. So this is going to allow us to edit this value over time. We're going to make it go from 0 to 400. 400 is the max, it's 400 pixels. And we're going to make that happen in a sixth of a second. And so what we're going to do is basically a value is just going to change. Actually, if we look at I can show you the value being edited right here. Notice how there's this aspect in red. That means the Unity animator has control over it. So if we play this over time, you can see that value changes, this value over here. That's really all it does. I have a bunch of code in here that actually manages the size of the beam based on this value. But for now, that's just what that looks like. We're also going to need to make this dissipate one. If I remember correctly, we just fade it out. Yeah, all we're doing is fading over time. This one's not even fade. Yeah. So we're going to make a new animation for when we actually stop the laser. And we'll dissipate based off this. This is the Sprite Hook thing that I was telling you about earlier. This gives us the ability to actually control these values, such as its color, its alpha. And that's just going to be a simple linear fade. We won't really worry about that too much. We'll make it happen kind of quickly. We need to do this for the beam graphic. Excuse me. We also need to do this for the charge graphic. Yes, because that's still going to be playing. This one right here. Awesome. So that's going to be good. We're going to go to this thing. We're going to get rid of these first two animations because we don't need them anymore. We have new animations just for the Destroyer. Ideally, I'd make this a little bit more uniform so we don't need different animations, especially that are doing the same thing. This gives us the option to change for the rate at which they grow, the rate they dissipate, which might eventually be good for the different types of enemies and the different type of lasers we have. But right now we're just sort of cloning the boss thing, so it's just a little bit of an inefficiency at this moment. Nothing too bad though, we don't have to really worry about it. So sweet. Let's go ahead and see if we actually get that laser beam growing now. And it tried to. I'm still calling by the wrong name. I have to update the actual name. It is no longer Laser Boss Grow. It is Laser Destroyer Grow. Because these things are called destroyers. They're good at destroying. Could not be found. Let's make sure I'm grabbing the right thing. Laser Destroyer Grow. It's on the front laser. Probably just spelled something wrong. Destroyer Laser Grow. Naming conventions are very important, everyone. You should have common naming conventions. Sweet. So that's actually playing now, but it's still not modifying the laser how I want it to. So I need to make sure that's happening correctly. We don't have the damage hooked up. We don't have, is the sprite correctly hooked up? Because this should be editing this beam sprite. And we're not actually editing its scale correctly. So I need to find out exactly what's going on with this. It could be the fact that the collider is a box shape instead of our mesh collider. That could be an issue because I did change that. Let's go ahead and look at one of our other implementations just to check, to find out exactly why that's not growing as I expect it to. We're going to take a look at one of the old enemies. Take a look at its lasers. They have the mesh colliders. I might just go with the mesh colliders. Yeah, it's using the mesh collider there. Let me take a look at the script. See what I actually wrote. See if I need to actually use that. We're going to go to Codeland for a little while. Just uses a basic raycast, so it shouldn't care about that. Yeah, that collision's only for colliding with the player. So that shouldn't matter. That should be fine. A new problem. How do we get this to scale correctly? So we're actually playing the animation. It's modifying the beam value over time. The beam is on. Is the beam the right size? I need to make sure that they're on the right collision layer as well. Should be all fine. Yep, that looks good. The beam is not rotated. Might have gotten ahead of myself with rotating that. Let's double check this, see if this works. It should be automatically rotating the beam to the correct direction, and it is, which is fine. But it's not stretching that thing correctly. Normally, we would just stretch these values. Because this should be adjusting based off the length of this, this max beam length, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on it. So I got to find out why this beam is not correctly talking with it. I'm going to read a bit of code for a little while. It'll be super thrilling. Those are all looking like they line up. Well, we'll have to just dig in deep and find out what's actually going on. Maybe it's colliding with something, and that could be why. You know, that's probably happening. It's probably colliding with something. Let me just go ahead and move the position of this laser beam. Because I just realized that the beam and the charge are right on top of each other. That could be an issue. Yeah, it's not supposed to be anything crazy like a slice sprite. Well, the beam distance is still 400, which means it's going out as far as it can. We could debug this with a little ray if we have to. We just might, because I don't see why it would extend that far and not actually modify. Well, the distance is correct. So let's go ahead and find out why we're not adjusting the scale. Let's just take a look at that scale value. So the scale value is apparently equal to 300. But we're hitting the scale and not necessarily the sprite scale. You know what? I made a mistake. We're not supposed to be hooking the scale in the Sprite Animator. We're just hooking the color so we can get that animation. So this, what's going on? I figured out the issue. We have this animator which allows us to change the color of it and change the scale of it. We actually don't want to control the scale because then it's going to override the whole beam extension thing right there. So that was my bad on that part. Normally I have both those checked, but we actually don't want either of those checked for that. This should get a beam that fires now. So we'll have to sync it up. We still got a little bit more work to do, but it should at least look, hey, look at that. We're starting to get closer to a laser. So we got this thing. And yeah, if the ship hits it, it clashes. So we don't have any head sprite here, so this doesn't look super cool. And the Star Wolf is apparently impenetrable by lasers because we're not doing any damage. It's just that badass. But now we've got a laser, so let's go ahead and finish up. A couple things we need to do. We need to adjust the position of this beam, so it's sort of at the end there. We want it to be synced up right to the edge, right a little bit closer. Probably something like there. It's going to be negative 27.7. We're going to remember that. The next thing we need to do is we need to get this guy to be animating as well. We want the this animation to be playing so that the beam also flickers as well as the charge. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust those values. So now that should put the beam laser at the base of the charge. So those are synced up. And then I need to actually make sure I say to play that animation. We are saying that it's not on the charge. No, there's one on the charge, but there's also one on the beam itself that I'm not playing. Laser boss firing beam. Yeah, we need another one in here. I'm just going to go check with the boss one and make sure I did have that in there. Interesting, that's not put on his one. I don't know why it's not, but we need to do that, so I'm going to add that in. So we got a sprite animation. Oh, you know what? I bet it's supposed to play automatically. That's why. We don't need an event for it. We'll just trigger it automatically as soon as it turns on. We can sync it up with delays. If you don't follow along, feel free to ask what I meant by that. Yeah, okay. Let's see what this looks like. Ah, look at that. That looks like a laser now. We got a laser and it's firing. That's pretty cool. Although, I don't know if we can do this. I kind of want to like tint it green. I don't know if I can. It just adds to it, making this cool cyan type thing. Yeah, we'd have to get a different sprite asset. We can get kind of close, but nothing too good. That cyan looks cool though. Anyway, we don't need to worry about that. So now we have the beam firing, which is pretty cool. There's a couple things left. It would be nice to have a head graphic on it, so it actually, when we're colliding here, that it shows something. I think I might hack together something out of that sprite that we have, just to have something showing there. Another thing is that we might want to make it so that the lasers actually collide throughout the entire box as opposed to just a bit there. That actually requires us to do a bit of code to check with the raycasters. We also want to make sure that it's damaging, which is just a component that we have to add. That's pretty simple. So we need to add a couple more things in here so the player takes damage when they touch this beam. And then we actually need to make it an event for the enemy ship to fire that after it's spawned. Right now we have it just sort of in this test scenario where we can just check it out. So let's go finish up the details of this laser, and then we'll actually add this as an event that the destroyer will sometimes do when it's in the level. And then we can go ahead and go into the level and fight one of these destroyers with the laser beams. But before I get into that, I'm going to do another question sweep and see if anyone's been asking any questions. And also drink some water, because my throat is rather dry. Oh man, Jacob Purnell's in here. Hey bro, it's good to see you. Alright. Atoshi Gami thinks Starr Mazer should do a crossover with Mighty Number 9. That would be glorious. I would love that idea. I mean, we sort of are if we get Matsumae-san on. She's like in there. Serbius says, I looked at a video of Jamestown, and Serbius doesn't know what to think. You should think that it's a great game. That's what you should think. Jim Lau asks, by the way, the shmup parts will always be in space, or maybe also in planets. They will also be on planets and inside rooms and underwater and all sorts of places, wherever we can send brick. Yeah, Kessel runs whatever you want. So, let's see here. More question marks. I have to look through just question marks. There's so much awesome conversation going on here, but I can't read all of that on there. Did they say that there were some sections of the shmup part that will be in Tate mode? I'm not familiar with Tate. Vertical. Okay, that's what it is. Thank you for clarifying that. So no, like it's not going to be like we're going to change to top view and it'll now be a vertical scrolling shmup, but there will be areas where the camera, instead of panning to the left, will actually start panning up, and you'll start moving up throughout a level. You know, especially in space, you know, it doesn't, as long as your thrusters are just pushing you off in a direction, it doesn't really matter where you're facing. So we're going to do sections. There's this really cool section in, I think it's Lords of Thunder. It's one of the old Vert shmups where you actually like go down through a pit and just, it feels really cool. It changes the pace of the game. So yeah, we're going to be moving you in more directions than just one. Let's see here. All right, Triptide asks, at Austin, hey, the Star Wolf need a laser to counter the boss laser, like in Border Down, because there's always some awesome DBZ counter Kamehameha in their face. There's a JPEG there. I bet it's awesome. We could put a laser on the Star Wolf. I don't know the actual like game implications of such a thing, but at the moment, because I'm not really thinking about it, but that laser that we just put on, the implementation would be a little bit different because we want to be able to trigger it. We don't really want much of a charge. We could just really make that instantaneous, but that's something that we can probably do. Let's see how long it takes to finish up this laser implementation, but maybe we'll go ahead and slap a laser on the Star Wolf if that's what you guys want to see next. Switcha says, hey Austin, can you implement a Starr Mazer minigame in which the narwhal pushes assortum items off the table? Someone here, Switcha, knows about my past, in which case I've made a really interesting game that no one knows about. So wherever you are, I appreciate that. That's referencing an old game I made. Maybe we'll talk about it some other day. Let's see. All right, Jacob's got all the fans, which are appropriate. You know, he's a nice guy. You should like follow his stream and his channel and his Twitter and everything. Yes, Jacob, you should totally live compose this because we don't have any beats on here. Well, you don't have any beats. I can have beats in my headphones at any moment in time. Sweet. All right, we are. I sometimes do move my head. I often move my head to the beat when I'm coding things. But right now we're doing lots of talking. So Now that we've caught up there, we're going to go ahead and clean up this laser a little bit. We're going to see if my filler asset works for the head. We're going to actually add some damage onto it. I'm not sure if I want to do the full collision, like the pixel collision on it. There's a couple ways we can do that. We can actually add in more ray casts and check off that, which is probably the way we'd go about. It's a lot of just like writing lines of code, which isn't as interesting as this whole interface thing. I'm trying to avoid that stuff because this is visual, so it looks a little more interesting. Not that I don't like writing code, but I know it's not the most exciting thing for everyone else. So first thing we're going to do, let's get that head on there. So we need to turn on not only the beam, but the head. And let's go take a look at what this looks like. Boop. All right. Let's adjust this graphic a little bit. So now we have a head graphic. Let's see if we can make it look somewhat interesting. Maybe if we like stretch it, scale it, or something like that. Need to adjust its position a little bit. Ideally, this would be animated. Maybe we can make a little animation for this too. Once again, this is not like final assets. Like I'm just sort of pulling together whatever I've got. We need to make an adjustment to the head reduction, which is something I adjust later. There we go. So this head reduction variable is how far does the laser go before it touches the head, because the head graphic might have its own depth on itself. So we can do something like this. It still kind of looks poopy, but it looks a little less poopy because at least there's a graphic there. And then let's add an animation to it. So some things we need to do, we need to make this 0.35, 0.14. These values are not remembered when we started over again, so we have to sort of remember them in our head. In the beam, we took that value, the head reduction, all the way down to 0. And let's go ahead and just add an animator on this, a Sprite Animator. Yeah, that's the one. Bullet animation. We're going to actually make a new animation, so let's dive a little bit into the Sprite Animation Editor. This is part of 2D Toolkit. We've got a group called Bullet Animation, so we're going to open this up. So this is a tool that was developed by another group. It allows us to edit sprite animation. So for example, we have this sort of charging bit that we can see here from the laser beam that we have. You can zoom in and look at that a little bit. So we're going to make a new one for the head, just so it looks a little less poopy. Sorry, Laser Kid. We're keeping convention here. Head. We'll take from the sprite collection, and let's go grab this cool sprite. I wonder, it might look cool. All right, we're going to try a couple things. So now we're going to add a bunch of frames in of the actual animation. There's a way to grab an entire sequence of animations, but of sprites, but I don't want to get the whole sequence. I want this to loop. Excuse me. Apparently water makes me burp. Alright, let's see what that looks like. That looks kind of cool. That might be a thing that looks neat. No, we want it to play faster. I'm adjusting the frame rate on it. Maybe if we make it like super fast. Okay, all right, this is starting to get cool. This might look all right. This might look all right. See, so we've got this new little animation called the Laser Destroy Head. Yeah, Starr Mazer, we don't have the option to turn off all the flashing lights yet, so if you suffer from epilepsy, you might want to be careful around this stream. So we're going to turn that on automatically. Let's see what this looks like. It's still going to be stretched because you don't really have like perfect assets for it. Let's see if this looks a little bit cooler. Ooh. Oh man, that looks pretty cool. Look at that. That's not so bad. It's all white though. We want some color in there, so I got to adjust this down. Yeah, all right. That's not the worst thing ever, right? It's pretty cool. we can use that. We can work with that. It'll work for now. So now we have like an actual hit when the beam's getting hit. You notice when you get into the center, it doesn't do that. That's actually a solution I haven't really figured out yet. Maybe we can start stretching out the beam and whatnot. We'll deal with that in a later thing. You should still be getting hurt here though. That's the thing. Every time you're touching this, you should be getting hurt. Maybe you're so close to the beam that it's just vaporizing through your ship. I don't know. We'll have some explanation for it, or we'll actually fix it. But let's go ahead and make it so this starts doing some damage to us. Although, do we want to fix? Let's see here, 508. We could do some raycasting stuff. No, let's not get into the making these edge things collide with us too much. That is more of a Cody thing. So let's go in and make this start doing some damage. It's not super challenging. We just need to actually add a damage component onto this, so it knows what type of damage to do. Didn't I already add one of these? I think I did. Maybe not. This seems familiar. Nope. Okay, cool. We're good. So the damage type is going to be bullet enemy, because that's where it's coming from. We attached our damage collider. Let's see if this works. Yeah, right, we're dealing damage. Yeah, we blew it up. Yay. So that happens when you collide with the beam. It does not yet, I don't think it yet happens when you collide with everything. Yeah, so we need to make it collide with some other stuff as well. Let's go ahead. I think we might actually just be able to make this work. Let me take a look at something. We've got a box collider. The box collider doesn't stretch. If the box collider actually stretched to where we would need it to be and adjusted dynamically, that would work pretty well. Let's see if we can get some damage on this thing right here, on the beam itself and the charge body. We already have a damage collision, so this box collider should be dealing with this. Let's take a look at our bullets. I'm going to add, so what I'm doing right now is I'm going to make it so that when you touch that charge bit in the front of it, that you actually take damage as well. I haven't actually implemented this yet, so let's go on a little coding journey. We're going to take a look at how the bullets did it, because the bullets actually do this same sort of thing. And they have rigid bodies, which I think is the main difference, because they can actually interact and send signals. They're also triggers, so it could be either that it was a rigid body or trigger. The answer is I should remember this, but the truth is I actually don't. So let's try making this a trigger and seeing if we get any collision on that. Because we already have this damage collision script attached to it. It should already be looking for things to make collisions happen, and that's not working. Let me double check with this damage collision and make sure that I got this right. So that's already looking for that. So yeah, we're probably going to have to do some sort of rigid body on this thing. Rigid bodies are physics components. They help manage collisions between things and sending messages when objects collide. It also manages like moving objects. Our characters move through a rigid body. Yeah, we're still not getting it. Let's make sure that that collision is actually touching it, or the collider is actually touching it. Because you have this box collider, but I don't know. Look at that box collider. It's totally not even touching it. Let's expand the size of this box collider. Yeah, okay, now it's working. So really the error was just that the box collider is not the right shape and size. So let's adjust this. We're going to get a visual on board. Sweet. So this is how big we want to make the box collider. So we'll just extend that size a little bit. Once again, it's not going to be super perfect, but if you're getting that close to a laser, it's pretty dangerous. You might want to think about where you're standing in life. I have this obsession with having like numbers being perfectly sweet. We could also like add in like a combo collider at some point where we actually do like a stretch sphere on this guy and then like a box here, so it's a little more accurate. But we'll go with this for now. This should be decent. Just that sprite back. Fine. Yeah, look at that. Getting all that damage. I'm going to double check. I don't know if I need the rigid body on this. If I don't need it, then I don't want it on there. It's just extra calculations going on. Yeah, we don't need that. Awesome. So that's cool. So now we've got the front of it working. We don't have the sides of it working yet. What we could do is we'd have to adjust the code so that the box collider on the beam adjusts with the size of it. Because right now the graphic of the beam adjusts. But this you'll see there's this green box here, and that's not adjusting with the size of it. The issue is that we have to actually recenter it because the box collider is not like sort of front aligned like the laser beam is. So we need to know what the offset is, which we can figure that out. You know, I just do a little bit of math for that. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Yeah, like I said, that's just boring code stuff. It won't be like the most exciting. But if we turn that on, that should start damaging the player if the player goes in it. Yeah, so now it will work. Then we do have to add the ray colliders in so that the beam ends, like it starts colliding the player when it gets to the end of it as opposed to the center. So the beam shortens. So yeah, we'll deal with that later. That's extra details, polished stuff that needs to be fit in. But yeah, we got this cool laser beam on it. So what we want to do next is we actually want to make this as an action that the enemy does. We want to make it so that the destroyer comes in, it's firing its little bullets, and then eventually it'll fire the beam, and then the beam will dissipate. Actually, we want to shut the beam off too, so let's go ahead and do that first. But before I do that, I'm going to not only read questions, but I'm also going to turn on a light because it is starting to get dark out here. This will change our scene lighting a little bit, so let's go catch up on some questions. So much discussion. I love it. So Serbius wants me to talk about the game. Do you mean like Starr Mazer? Like, is that what you want me to talk about? Clarify, Serbius, if you want me to describe all of Starr Mazer for you. Let's see here. People are talking about upgrading their backer pledges, which is amazing. I heard something that if everyone donates like $40 extra, we get 3DS, which would be, oh my god, so cool. But that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. It would be cool though. Yeah, they're talking about how awesome things like getting to be able to be in the game if you join in their Star Citizen tier, which is super awesome. We've got Clayst. There isn't any chance of you guys doing add-ons for specific backer rewards, such as the poster or the short shirt, is there? Unfortunately, Clayst, no, not for the Kickstarter campaign. It is not something that we organize beforehand, and the way that we're doing a lot of runs is that we have a certain number that we can sort of abide by and ship that many of it, which is why a lot of these are limited. So. We will be looking into this after the campaign because we want people to still be able to have a way to purchase the game and purchase some of these rewards as we're doing development. So provided we get funded, which is very close because of all the amazing support that you guys have done, then after the campaign we'll be looking into that. The only thing that I don't feel 100% on is that, I mean, the t-shirts are backer exclusive. So if you want one of those t-shirts, you gotta hop on it now. We will be doing possibly other t-shirt designs in the future. But as for this moment, if you want one of those sweet t-shirts, you should totally get on that. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I totally don't have Nightbot in here, so if you want links to it, I'm gonna just rely on the mods here, Eclipse, Husky, and Faziski, to be dropping links to the Kickstarter. You can also go to Kickstarter or StarMazer/Kickstarter, which if you haven't done that yet, you should do that right now. You can totally interrupt this stream for a few minutes to go check that out, because that's why we're all here. Let's see here. More questions. The pulsating orb is going to be in the dance club, right? Untis. Yes, Jacob Burnell. It'll be nothing but lasers. Actually, I don't know if you noticed, but in the Kickstarter trailer for the game, in the bar, there's like you can barely hear it in the background, but there's this little like untis beat that's just below the characters' voices, and there's little lasers that are like bouncing left and right, like a little techno rave club. It's super cool. I want to go to that club. I want to dance there. Uh, People are saying cool things. These are, here we go. We got one. Boom. At Austin. Is there a way to do some zoom at some point, like in Neo Geo games? You know that zoom. I mean, like physically, yes, but it will look like balls. Let me show you. I'll just show you right now. It's gonna look worse. It's gonna be awful. It's gonna be terrible. But I will show you it. We've got this camera here. And we've got our pixels. Is this? Yeah, yeah. So we can like zoom right in. Yeah, you can like count those pixels and shit. We can do all sorts of things. Like, you see the world? This is the world, like it tearing apart and everything. But the thing is, when you do that, you're now like changing sort of the scale of the pixels, and you're making things not like super great. And like when things are zoomed in, they don't look good at all. It's much better to have everything at the same sort of pixel density, which is sort of a huge aspect of pixel art games. So any zooming that we might do, we really want to do that by like we can do a little bit of scaling within a certain regard, but really we're going to want different sprites for it. And so when you do that transition from the Star Wolf and the dock to the transition out in space and that seamless thing, we're going to be shrinking it down, but we're actually going to be using different sets of sprites to be able to get that to look really solid. Let's keep scrolling, looking for these questions. Rex 705, why no Starbound crossover? I'll be completely honest. I don't know like the storyline of Starbound. I have not played Starbound a ton. I've played Terraria. Not that Starbound is worse or better than Terraria. I just haven't gotten involved with it. So all of our crossovers I've done to make a lot of sense to fit seamlessly in our world. Starbound is a game that I am not as familiar with, and I don't know if the rest of the team is. So maybe that was a missed opportunity, or maybe a future opportunity. You should talk to them for us. That would be cool. Maybe introduce us or something. But yeah, we would want to make it, as some people mentioned, like we really want to make it like a really like a core narrative experience. Like it has to make sense in the world for us to do any of those. Apparently, there was mention of an awesome game called Revolver 360, which is a bullet hell style shmup that Triptide introduced us to. It seems pretty neat. And more questions. We got Kickstarter links. Thank you, the Army of None, dropping that. Everyone should be knowing about that. All right. Also, Jim adds, if everyone only adds $6.63, then we hit the 180K, which allows us to have the coolest video game music soundtrack ever in existence ever. I feel completely comfortable saying that because it's the only place where you'll find the Proto Men, Vert, Banami Matsumai, Keiji Yamagishi, Vinsticle, and a whole bunch of other crazy awesome people. Triptide, when I was talking about scaled zoom, it was like the elements of stuff after explosions going into the screen, you know, or a guy getting smashed into the screen, etc. I think I know the stuff you're talking about, just like things coming closer and whatnot. Once again, like we'd want the assets to be the right pixel density for that to make sense. So it'd actually probably do a lot more custom things. But apparently Fuzisky can message the lead dev from Starbound for us. So I don't know if you guys think that's a cool thing, then maybe we should have that conversation. So I'll let you initiate that, Fuzisky. Plus, it's just cool to meet other devs, so I'm down. Oh man, Rex just increased their pledge from 30 to 100. Thank you so much, Rex, and you are going to be rewarded with an awesome backer exclusive t-shirt. And just, you might have seen this before. I'm just going to show us again. This is just my background. Like this is just a desktop computer. Oh my god, I can't wait for this. This is going to be, I had to increase my pledge so I can get this shirt because there's only a certain amount of them. So I'm really excited about this. Once again, this is Maximo V. Lorenzo did this design, which is just it's just so fast, it's so intense. He sort of blew us away with this. Yeah, I wanted to like I want to like make a poster of this. I don't know. We're talking about things. Anyway, we have talked about all those things. The Army of None is thinking about upping to get that t-shirt. Army of None, whatever. Like do a favor for a friend. You know, wash freaking Serbius washing cars to do it. Whatever it takes to get that sweet t-shirt. because I want to be able to, when we hang out, whenever we hang out, we'll probably hang out sometime in the future. I don't know. We exist for people. We go travel the world and things. Yeah, we'll hang out. We wearing those shirts. We'll be the coolest kids in the school. Um, all right, sweet. We should send that desktop wallpaper to backers. You know, Rafa, I like your idea. We should send that desktop wallpaper to backers. I am totally down for that. Sweet. So, yeah, look for that in an update, maybe very soon, maybe after this. I don't know. We'll see how fast I can get that together. Okay, so we're going to go to the next step. I mean, I know it's been great watching these bullets pulse forever, but we're going to put an end to this. So what we're going to do next is we're going to make this laser fade out. After this laser's been shoot for a little while, we want it to stop shooting. So to do that, we actually need to put in a new event. So just like we have the event that fires a laser, event fire laser, we're going to have an event stop laser. Add an event sequence. Eventually you sort of get into this flow where you just sort of like, I mean, like, I could explain these things to you, but you all know what it does. You all know what they do. So we're just sort of doing more of the same things. We need to get the stop specifically. So the way that we did this last time in the boss laser is that when the laser fires, it actually triggers a subsequence, which is the stop laser. Subsequences are basically an entire event sequence that we can put into any place in another event sequence. And this is really cool because you can actually have conditional things happen. So this is where we're going to get a lot of that powerful system of being able to add in things if you've done something, right? So like, for example, a super simple example, right? Like maybe maybe there's a renegade like holding a gun to you, right? And so they're about to shoot you, right? And they'll say something like Brick, this is your last step. And maybe in one of their playthroughs, you've actually encountered this bandit before, and they shot at you and you dodged it and they missed, right? So we can actually, what we would do is we could put a subsequence in there, and we could have that check, that condition check if they've shot at you before and if it hit or missed. And if it did hit or miss, we can actually add in another dialogue where they reference that. And that's sort of like, that's just super basic, simple functionality, but it's something that's enabled with our event system that we have. That event system that's actually open source. You can do simpler things. So the whole thing of tracking all the data is not open source, but just this code that I'm playing with here. Basically everything that you've been watching me doing of adding these event sequences, the core of that system is available free on GitHub. We open source that. The thing that is not available on GitHub is all the pieces of code that I've written that are specific to Starr Mazer. They're all super simple things. If you're interested in coding, or if you've done a little bit of coding, you'd probably be able to pick it up fairly quickly. So anyway, we're going to continue by doing the stop laser by making it a subsequence and triggering that after a delay of certain time. Then we're going to play the dissipate sequence so it fades out the lasers. We're going to shut off those game objects because we don't want them active anymore. We will, and then this one actually goes and delays and does a full animation, but we don't need to do that. So it's going to be pretty straightforward, a very simple event. So we're going to do a delay. We're going to make the laser beam last 2 seconds. Play our cutscene. Grab that animation. We need to link that up, and it's the Destroyer Laser Dissipate. I think that's what the name of it is. Destroyer Laser Dissipate. Yep. Then we need to turn the game objects off. We want to turn everything off: the beam, the charge, and the head. Which actually means we need to, in the dissipate animation, we need to make sure that we also dissipate the head, because that could be on screen. If you're ever wondering what that big thunk is that you're hearing, that's my mouse. The touchpad on the Mac is a very big, heavy thunk. Every time you click. Anyway, we don't have a Sprite Hook on this. That's why I need to add a Sprite Hook on this. Sprite Hooks are the things that allow me to edit scale and color, or alpha, over time in the animation window. Oops. I need to stop recording. I don't want those values recorded. Unity, you can turn the record button on and just start playing with things in the editor, so you don't even have to worry about the timeline thing. It's super cool, super convenient, but not what I want right now. Scale, all right. So we're gonna hook that color. We're gonna put the sprite in there. We're gonna go back over to the front laser. That's not the one I wanted. And we'll fade that over time. Sweet. So that should take care of that. Then we just need to add in a subsequence to the event fire laser, which will trigger after all the other things. And that should cause this sequence to run, which just waits 2 seconds and then dissipates the laser. Yeah. Oh, gotta set the order. All right. Let's see if that works. Well, I broke something. Yep. My thought is, nope, the order is in there, so that's fine. This thing just delays. Do I have to have anything that prevents this from triggering? No, that's fine. Oh, it would help if I check my console. Animation state blank cannot be played because it could not be found. Where are we triggering the animation state from? Destroyer laser dissipate. That should be fine. This is getting triggered automatically, which it should not be. So I gotta find out why this would be triggering. So waiting for the events to complete, so we wouldn't trigger the subsequence till after all this. It's happening in the 6th in line. Let's go through our code and our logs and see what's going on. Fire laser destroyer, fire laser destroyer, it's fine. Fire laser destroyer. Well, that's all working fine, but we're not actually seeing the laser get fired anymore. And this error happens. So we've got 2 sort of errors going on because of this event stop laser. Let's go ahead and get this away and make sure we didn't ruin everything from some other thing that I might have done. Yep, so we're totally breaking stuff because it can't reference that event sequence because of this event, this sub-event. I'm going to remove this real quick. Just want to do a sanity check and make sure I didn't break anything else along the way. Yep, I totally broke something. What is it that I broke? I included the head. That's got no transparency. Something has triggered the dissipate. Is it this? Because these things are fading out to 0 in alpha, is what's going on. But I don't know why they are. We're gonna just crank these back up. Maybe I grabbed the wrong thing? So I don't know how these guys got transparent, but they did. There we go. So that's step 1. Now let's add the subsequence again. All right, so we got to the next part. Now we're getting an error because it cannot find the animation state that we're looking for. And that animation state is destroyer laser dissipate. Now it is actually there. So did I spell it wrong? Object reference is not set to an object, which means something is not connected correctly. Let's go take a look into the code and see what it's complaining about. Animations.get clip animation name. Did I name the right thing? I didn't. That's the object name, which is a way to actually look up objects directly just by name. And this is the actual animation name. I put that in the wrong order, which is why we're having an issue. Should work now. That's a long laser. We're going to reduce that time. We got a second? Yeah, I'm feeling that. There's one thing I really don't like about this. There's a little bit of an overlap when we do the fade out. I'm going to show you that real quick. Here we go. See that right there? That's that line. Oh, I don't like that. The issue is that these sprites are actually different. Like, notice how there's no line overlapping here, but there's overlap there, there's overlap there, there's overlap there. So what's going on is that those sprites are not at the right length. The charged sprites are a little bit too long. We'd have to go up into Photoshop and just chop off the ends of those so they're perfectly aligned. That's something we can do later. We don't worry about doing Photoshop stuff at the moment. So we've got our dissipate going, which is nice. Let's go see what everyone's saying up on the stream before we go to the next part. I forgot to mark my thing, but there is a question. I found a question. Ooh, I've got a new one for you. Ian Odia. I'm going to try to do it a different way every time. Are you using any kind of custom libraries to maintain pixel size between assets, or are you actually rendering the game to a very low resolution and then resizing that buffer? So 2D Toolkit takes care of a lot of the effort for us of this on us. What they do is we can set sort of a pixel ratio, and it does scaling calculations based off the resolution that we set to make that appear correctly on the screen. We're not really we're not dealing with the level on the buffer. Unity takes care of a lot of that stuff for us. But what's actually happening is that if you look at my resolution pick, I have an option called double perfect, which is actually, this is the exact scale resolution of our game. It's 368 by 207. When I do double perfect, it just literally doubles up the scale, increases the size of the pixels for it. What's going on there is that the camera here is just doubling that asset. So we just zoom into the pixels perfectly, stretching them across the screen. There's a couple of different ways you can actually stretch in here somewhere. Yeah, we're doing fit visible, which basically just fills up in the screen. If we didn't actually have the right dimensions, it would start stretching it, which I think I can show you. Whatever, it would look terrible. But yeah, we're using 2D Toolkit to manage our scaling. Jackalope Dave will only wear the t-shirt when playing Starr Mazer. Well, fortunately, you can play Starr Mazer forever, so you'll have clothing for the rest of your life. Let's see here. More questions. Interesting topics. That everyone's talking about things and hanging out and having a good time. Rex mentions Broforce as a crossover because it's a game all about heroes, only the manliest of heroes. Yeah, it's a pretty intense game. I played that game with a bunch of my Canadian friends, and I was the American in the room. I enjoyed it much more than I would have otherwise. There's discussion about download codes. If everyone has a question directly about how we are distributing the game, feel free to ask, because it seems there's a discussion going on there, but I won't get into the details. So if you have a specific question for me about what we're doing, just to sort of elaborate on it, we've already talked with Valve, and as long as you're funded, which if things are going well, might happen in a matter of hours, thanks to all of you, we will be distributing our beta and releasing the game through Steam. We will also enable DRM-free download access directly, and we might end up partnering with a couple other distribution sites that people like. So we'll definitely take a look at that. Like I have been in contact with people at Humble. They're super cool. I like the way they do things. So maybe we'll talk with them at some point as a way to distribute the game. I know Don's a fan of good old games, so we'll look into all those opportunities because they're cool ways to send out the game. But either way, you'll always have a way to access Starr Mazer in some form, in the way you'd like to. And Fuziski just making it rain with Goat Simulator codes now. So if you're listening right now, check out those. So let's get back into development. We've got our laser fading out, which is super cool. Now we need to make it so that the destroyer will fire at the player or just fire the laser sort of when they're on screen. And we have to figure out a way to do that. We'll need an event that tells the destroyer to fire, but we need to find out when we want them to fire. And I actually haven't thought about this too much right now. I don't know if we have anything implemented right now that'll enable us to do that, so we might have to write up some custom code for it. There's a couple of different ways we can do it. We can make it so that after spawning, that after a certain amount of time, the destroyer will fire a laser. We could have it so that when it gets to a certain point on screen, it will fire a laser. We could look at other variables, like if the player crosses in front of it, it will fire the laser. There's a couple different things we can do. I think what I want to do is, I'm going to make something that does it based off of a timer. So we're going to create a new event, which is, we'll say time since created or time since activated. What this is going to do is it's going to, as soon as something wakes up or is turned on, then it'll start counting. And when it hits a certain amount of time, it'll do that trigger. So we're actually creating a new event trigger, sorry, not an event. And we're going to use that to actually decide when to fire it. So we're actually going to write a little bit of code here. This will be pretty simple, so it won't be too boring. But this is sort of how we work with our event system. So I need to go in here and create a new C# script. We're going to call this event trigger time since enable, because that's what it's going to be. I'm going to sync this up with our manual develop project. I'm going to go over to the code area. I'll explain a bit of what's going on, but I don't want to talk about absolutely everything, because there's a whole bunch of things going on here. But we're going to extend from event trigger. Or is it event? Oh yeah, I need to be using the event system because it's from the event system namespace. Should be event trigger. We need to include a public override conditions met, which is a value of we can return. What we want to do is, this is a function conditions met that all event triggers have that let us know whether or not this thing that we want is true. We're going to serialize a float value, which is trigger time, no, time since enabled. We're going to default that at, I'll just leave it at 0, that's fine. And then we need an internal counter, which we'll do, we'll enable counter there. And we'll do on void fixed update. Should we do fixed? No, we're just going to do update. Fixed update and update have different cycle intervals. They basically run so many times every frame, but we want to take time into consideration. So enabled counter plus equals time dot delta time, which is the amount of time that's passed in a frame. if enabled, now we're going to see if enabled counter is greater than time since enabled. Then I guess we don't really have to do anything. Actually, I'm going to write this a little bit differently. So what we do is we look at if our counter is lower than this goal of how long we want to wait since we're enabled. If it is lower than that, we're going to just add on how much time has passed since the last frame. If we exceed that value, then we're going to set it equal to it. And then we don't do anything after that because we don't really need to count. I don't know if this is absolute 100% the most efficient way to do it, but just checking a comparison of a value is pretty cheap to do that every update, so you can actually just leave that there. It might be cheaper to like start a Boolean or something, but I don't really care about waiting for it. So we're just going to return is enabled counter greater or equal to time since enabled, because that will tell us whether or not the conditions have been met. But we also want to do another one, which is triggered. No, on trigger, that one. So this is also another function that is in the base class of event triggers. What this does is this makes this an active event, which we talked about in the previous one, which means so that this trigger itself will actually tell the event sequence that, hey, I've completed my task. If everything else is done, go ahead and run the event sequence. And in our example here, what we want to do is that once this timer has passed, the destroyer will fire its laser. So we want this to be an active event. So that's what this onTrigger function is going to enable us to do. So this is all the code we have to write. It's a very simple thing. We're just checking a counter. But we're going to go ahead and put this on the event fire laser for this. We're going to remove this other trigger in a moment. I have to wait for it to compile real quick. Enable. Sweet. And I'm going to do a very long process of moving this up one by one. One of the things I have on my list is making it so I can just drag and drop these, as opposed to going through this process of slowly moving them up. This is a lot of the default stuff in the Unity editor, which is why I'm using it this way. So we're going to remove this component, and we're going to make it so that after it's been in existence for, well, first we're going to just test the code real quick. So I'm going to put it in 1 second. What just happened there? Did I just... So that just moved the thing all the way back down to the bottom. That's unfortunate, but I think that might have happened from a hotkey I hit. If anyone knows a hotkey to move these things around, as opposed to clicking in this menu, please tell me. That would save me a lot of time. All right, let's make sure this works. Sweet, and we still fired it. There's really no like indication. There should be like a charge up. Maybe we'll do that next. It kind of sucks that you're just like hanging out here and then suddenly just boom, laser goes, and like you can't dodge that. That's terrible. You need a little bit more feedback there. Maybe we'll do that next. But anyway, the code works, which is cool. It triggers based on that. You'll notice that there's nothing really different here, but it will be different in a moment when we're actually spawning these enemies. So we're going to go ahead and test this out by putting them in the level. I'm going to save my project real quick because we've made adjustments to a bunch of prefabs. And next is to actually put these into the shmup level. So this is the stuff that we dealt with earlier in the day. If you're with us, you'll remember how that all works. But we have a event that spawns destroyers. And we're going to adjust this so that it can happen anytime. See. Okay, so now we should start having a bunch of destroyers getting sent at us. Kind of slow. Oh god, yeah, that's working. So we might want to increase that to a little bit more because this thing shot at us before it was on screen. But it worked, so that's good. Let's go into the enemy, the destroyer. Let's see here. let's go to this laser. It's 2 levels deep. We have to bring it out here. There's a difference between accessing prefabs within the project viewer, the hierarchy. So yeah, let's make this. Put the trigger back down there. Anyway, 6 seconds. We'll try that. Let's see if it waits till it gets on screen before it shoots us. They're pretty slow to move. We're waiting for it. There it is. Boom. Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. These things are crazy to dodge that. Had to practice that a little bit. Cool. So now we have that functionally working. The next steps that we want to do are we want to add in that feedback for the laser charging up, so the player knows that, oh man, the laser is going to fire, as opposed to just getting hit, which really sucks. So that's what we're going to do next. But first I'm going to check up on the stream and see what questions we may or may not have. People talking about hitting them stretch goals is pretty cool. Yeah, class is talking a lot about sort of like just people being less reluctant to back people who have not released Kickstarters in the past or released games in the past, which is definitely a legitimate concern. Fortunately, everyone on the team, or a large portion of people on the team, have shipped games before. With my most recent one being Sports Ball for the Wii U, which you can totally check out. So thank you all for the support there. Sweet. So looks like we are good on that. No new questions coming up. So yeah, we're going to be closing up the stream soon. I planned out for another 10 or so minutes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to finish up the implementation of this. We're going to put in the feedback to have that laser charge up before it fires. And then we're going to go ahead and once that's in, that's feeling good, I'll set up a simple little level and I'll go through and we'll play some shmup and it'll be pretty cool. And then we'll say goodnight. And then I might have a backer update that may or may not include that poster for you to download and put on your background, so you can have one like this too. But we need to bring that destroyer back in. We want to be able to iterate on this quickly because if anything happens, so I don't want to wait for the thing to spawn in the level or anything. So let's go ahead and shut that thing off again because I don't want destroyers spawning while I'm playing it. We'll just get rid of that. And let's drop a destroyer right in. All right. Boop. So what we need to do is we need to adjust this event fire laser. We want to add in events before the laser gets fired to show a charging up animation. Fortunately, we already have one. I don't actually know why it's like I presumed it would be playing correctly, so I must have just adjusted something incorrectly because we have this laser boss fire charge, but that's not. You know why? I think it's just because it's that. Let's try this. I had adjusted this earlier, and it should be waiting until it's complete if we do that. So let's go ahead and try this, and this might actually fix it. I said a bunch of things, I might not reference things. We are now trying to wait for the animations to complete. We are waiting 6 seconds though. Hey, look, it was charging. Did you see that? But I canceled it. I canceled it because I'm interested in changing this delay thing here. Just gonna make that 1 second. So I think this is just gonna work, and then we have like nothing to do because we're already finished. Yeah. Okay. So that was a little bit better, but also a lot worse because now the laser is not stretching correctly. What happened there? My guess is that the max beam length didn't get set. Yeah. So we need to adjust this max beam length. Why didn't that happen is a mystery that we're going to solve right now. Maybe boss firing charge doesn't end. That's why. So what I did here, this is what I did. I just adjusted to make that actually work. on the sprite animation, we have this variable called animation duration. What this is that's how long we wait until we go to the next event in sequence, the game object's active in this case for these two events. If you set it to 0, that means it's 0 seconds, so it will go right away. If you set it to a number, it will wait that amount of time. This is nice if you want something to happen before an animation finishes. If we set it to -1, it'll wait till the animation is complete. And this is why I was messing up with things earlier, because I didn't remember these little details. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to take this one, the one that does the fire charge. We want to set that at -1 so we see the charging animation happen. And then as soon as that's done, it fires the laser. But I also set the laser boss firing charge to -1. The issue is that's a looping animation. So it's going to wait until it's complete, but it's going to wait forever. And we don't want that to happen. So we actually only wanted to wait for a little bit of time. Actually, we don't want it to wait for any time, so I'm just going to not wait for it to complete because we want the laser to grow as soon as that starts. So just by unchecking that wait for event, we should have it. And this should give us the experience we want, where the player gets feedback that the boss is going to fire the laser, and then he fires the laser. Boom. Okay, that worked, but it looked it looked a little janky. Let's go ahead and see if we can clean that up. So we're flying through. I'm going to step by this frame by frame so we can see what's going on. You know, that's okay. You know what? That's why, because it's sort of stretching. First of all, the head gets put there, which I'm not super excited about. I think really what we want to do is just have less time for the laser to stretch out. Right now it takes a 1/10 or 1/6 of a second. We're going to make it take a lot less time and see if that fixes this. So we're going to go over the animation here. We have this laser grow. We're going to make it happen over 3 frames. That looked a little bit better. I think we can still make it tighter though. We'll go to 2. Should we make it instantaneous? Maybe we do. Yeah, it's still not getting exactly where I wanted to. This might actually be a slightly more involved process, but we'll try one more thing, which is just setting it to maximum right from the beginning. That was better. I think what I didn't like is that the head was sort of turning on in there, and that's sort of like, it made the whole experience look weird, because you see the head, but the laser is sort of at the end. And there are a couple of things we can do with this to make this fixed. The approach that I will take is I'm going to turn the head on afterwards. Yeah, we're going to not turn the head on when the beam turns on. And instead, that was cool. Game object active. We're going to turn the head on later. We're going to turn the head on after the laser has grown to its full length. Let's see what that looks like. Might be a little bit better. Yeah, there's a little bit of a hiccup there with the laser going. And I wonder if we can actually, I think I know how to do this. I think I know what I want. I'm gonna look through. Yeah, see, I don't like this frame. That's the worst. I don't like that. What we're gonna do is we normally wait for the entire animation to complete. We're not gonna wait for the entire animation to complete. We're gonna have to find out exactly how long this animation is. So let's go into the fire charge. It is 1.3 seconds. So we're going to set this to like 1.2. So now what's going to happen is that after 1.2 seconds, then we're going to trigger the actual laser beam growing. Let's see if that looks a little bit better. Ooh, that was pretty cool. I like that a lot. I got an error here that I'm going to fix real quick. I think we just want that. I'm gonna watch it frame by frame, but that looked pretty good. So that might be it. Yeah, you get that, like, just that moment of the beam forming. Yeah, we're gonna stick with that. And then, oh, but the head didn't turn on. That's not right. We gotta make that head turn on. 5, 6, 7. We need to set active on. Oops. All right. Look at that. Ah, that was great. Now we got some feedback in there. Let's go ahead and play some shmup. So we're going to make a little bit of a level here. The way we make levels is we just basically store in a bunch of events that are potentially able to happen during a shmup mission, and the dynamic shmup engine decides what is going to come in what order. We can have a little bit of control over that, and we're going to take advantage of that. The way we're going to take advantage of this is that we're going to make it so that the destroyers will only spawn at a certain point in the level. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use our difficulty curve to modify that. So the enemy destroyer is going, or the event to spawn the destroyer is going to have a difficulty of 1. And we're going to make sure that it doesn't appear in the first like 10 seconds. And doesn't appear after the first 100. Not that that matters too much. But yeah, so we're going to require difficulty. Actually, we're going to require a difficulty of 0.5. Everything else is sort of a difficulty of 0. Right now, we can modify these if we would like to, but I'm not super concerned about it at the moment. As we start getting into actually designing levels, we'll like balance out a real curve. But I really just want to show an example with this one. And then we're going to go in. Oh, the other thing we can do is we can make it have a high priority, which we've already done that. This has a weight of 10, which will make it, it's very likely to choose this as opposed to the other objects, which have a random weight of 1. So this is really going to encourage the destroyer to spawn when we hit that difficulty 0.5 section. Now we need to actually go to the level manager. So this is our difficulty curve for the level. You'll notice that it's 1 the whole way. We actually want to bring this down quite a bit, all the way down. Sweet. So now it's at 0. We're going to put it at like, I don't know, 0.1 is good. We're going to have a section in the middle where it's going to jump up. And then difficulty is going to jump back down. Well, we'll have it gradually get easier. So really, this is going to be the point in which our destroyer is likely going to spawn, which is about halfway through the level. And then it will, if it doesn't spawn right away, it'll have a decreasing chance of actually spawning throughout the level. As far as frequency goes, we're going to, I want to do something fun here. We're going to have it slowly ramp up, and then we're going to get a part right after the, no, right before the destroyer. Yeah, right before the destroyer, we're going to make a bunch of enemies come in. So the way that this curve works, if you weren't here earlier, is that this is how much time passes before we spawn in another enemy. And so I'm going to make this go down real low. All right, not negative 29, not that low. But we're going to spawn an enemy every like half second, which will just, it's just going to send a ton of people at us. Otherwise, it'll only be 4 seconds. So it's going to be a very short period of time. Send it out a little bit, where a bunch of enemies will start coming in. So those are our curves. Let's now we need to drop in what possible enemies can spawn into there. I'm just going to load up a ton of them. Obviously, we want to put the destroyer in there. We want to add in the helix one. That's pretty cool. The loop pattern is pretty interesting. I want to put in the pattern that we made earlier today, which is the top bottom, and also the new enemy type which we made, which fires a triple shot straight forward. I made it simple again. I clicked off the object. And let's add a couple of basic patterns. Sweet. So most of these are all the little spinning enemies, but they'll move in different patterns, and then we should encounter a boss a large way through the level. We'll set this level to 2 minutes. So in about 60 seconds in, we should encounter one of the around 60 seconds in, we should encounter one of the destroyers. All right, wish me luck. This is where you like cue the sweet shmup music. You're flying around, blasting through things. You know, one thing I want to adjust with these enemies is I don't want them to just shoot forward. I want them to shoot like at the player. It's kind of cool when they shoot forward like this because they create, as I mentioned earlier, they create these sort of like barriers that you have to fly between. But oh god, we didn't adjust his timer thing. Hold on, I'm gonna fix that real quick. That was cheap. That was totally cheap. The destroyer getting all up in our business. I didn't like that. We gotta go adjust him. Laser out of nowhere. Unfair destroyer. We'll set this back up to, we did 6 seconds, I think it was, so it comes in like almost when it's all the way through the screen. There we go. All right, round 2. And this is a super simple shmup level. I mean, we don't have too much going on us. Like, if you were just getting used to the controls, this would be kind of interesting. If you time your shots right, you can sort of get in the middle, dodge these bullets. The bullets aren't moving fast. Like, this is not indicative of, like, high-level gameplay here. Oh, we got that guy sneaking in. It does get a little hectic. I want to adjust my weapon so I can shoot those guys. Oh, God. Almost got hit. Must take to the destroyer. Yeah, I got it. So that's sort of like the big enemy. We had a bunch more enemies like spawning in just before there. The other thing that we have to balance out with actual pacing is making it so that when an event happens, it's just an event, and we're actually only pacing events. What's that guy doing? What's that guy doing? This one, he doesn't know how to fly his ship. Look at that. Look at that. It's flying his ship down. Silly. Oh man, lots of bullets. Okay. Alright. Dodging them bullets. Oh, we got one of the big ones coming at us. No, I took it out. Sweet. Oh no, he's still coming. That crazy ship just flying all gangsta style. I know what's happening with it. I didn't adjust something later on. I love this character. And eventually we'll have made it through the whole sequence, and the enemies won't be spawning anymore. I want to show, like, I was thinking of like showing like a timer on screen to show you like how much longer you have to your destination, because you know this shop mission is going to take like 2 minutes, and it would be cool to see something on the screen that's like counting down to how long till you go to your next destination. I really like that idea of feedback, and I love numbers on screens, just things counting and showing intervals. But yeah, so you know, in further iterations, we'll actually show the whole cycle being completed. So then I would eventually take this into a dock and land, and hop out of the Star Wolf and play as Brick. Brooke Stonewood, who's that? Anyway, and yeah, and so we will be seeing that in future episodes of it. The reason why we're not showing it right now is because we don't have like super fancy art assets like we do for this section of it. But we do have that part functioning. It still needs a little bit of iteration, but we've been working on the cycle a lot. So I'm going to just let this beautiful thing run. We're going to be closing up soon, so I'm going to run through questions. So we're going to catch up on all this stuff. So if you have any last questions that you want to ask before the stream's done, ask them now. Otherwise, we'll be wrapping up. But let's go catch up with all the cool things that have been said recently. Vizisky linked the Starr Mazer, thank you very much. And he says, we still need to play some sports ball, which I absolutely agree. In fact, we will be playing a little bit of sports ball during the 24-hour stream. So Vizisky, we'll get to play there. I'll teach you how to wreck everyone else on the other team, on the rest of the Amigos team. But yeah, you should watch us play that game and a million other things. Mm. Yeah, class apparently was listening to a podcast. They were talking about it wasn't immediately obvious how much experience the team had. So that's why we did a lot a description in the sections of about the team and sort of what we worked on. But apparently that wasn't enough. So it's good feedback. Thank you for that. Um, oh man, apparently apparently Jacob Purnell just made a track. I don't have really the setup to play it through this, but everyone should scroll back and listen to Jacob Purnell's new track, which I am totally going to go listen to after this stream. We will be blasting this. Apparently, the music is very sexy, and there's cats and Cat Mazer. I just can't wait for this. We might have to put some cats in the game. Not, I mean, beyond the ones that we have, like cat cones, things. I don't know. Anyway, the M stands for meow. Wonderful. The meows. So much meowing. I can't wait. I really want to listen to this. Sweet. Scrolling through. There's a question. Boom. Triptide asks, will there be a time extension for the art contest? You know what? Like, if you get it in before we start showing them on Friday, we'll make sure to check our email before we do the announcement on the 24-hour stream. So you should try to get them in tonight if you can. But if you can't, and we find more after the deadline, I mean, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna look before the stream. So. Enemy ships that group up randomly at Cliff's feet. I think that should be like they are things. There are people. Like, it's not just necessarily robots, right? Like, there are things controlling these controlling these ships, and when you encounter other characters such as ATEC, there's going to be like real like interactions between them. Your dialogue choices might piss them off and might cause them to make a mistake. So you'll definitely be seeing a bit of that in there. Is there a possibility of a GIF recorder being built into the game? Hit a button, record a quick little GIF or something awesome. That would be amazing. I think that should just be required for every game ever. But fortunately, we have tools like Fraps that allow us to record video and Photoshop to be able to export those GIFs. There's also a bunch of GIF exporting websites online that are really slick. So pick up a copy of Fraps for yourself, and then you will have the power of all of the GIFs. Sweet, Chris. I'm glad you enjoy this. So this is like sort of a new thing. This is interesting for me to show part of the process. I tried to make it show more of the some of the more interesting stuff, a lot of the more visual stuff. But this is the first of hopefully many coding shows that we do, especially as we get into development of Starr Mazer after we get funded. So thank you everyone for joining with us. Yeah, give me feedback. Tweet at me, like send us emails, whatever you want. We want to know what's interesting for you on the stream. So if you like this, if you want to see more code, if you want to just check out like actual development sessions, if you want to know more about design and whatnot, let us know what you want to see, because that's what we want to show you, because it's all just about hanging out with all of you on stream. Yeah, 64 hours ago, dawn of the third day or something like that. It's crazy. Will we be seeing much of other characters in the shmup sections fighting each other, such as Brick settling them against each other? There will be segments where you sort of get caught up in the middle of all sorts of galactic wars and battles, and your interaction or lack of interaction will influence the sort of situation going on. Yes, Triptide is reminding me not to forget the IRC channel, which is a place for all Starr Mazer fans to be able to hang out and chat, much like you can in the stream here, but just all day, every day, 24/7 mazing, straight up mazing. So yeah, hopefully Triptide will post a link to that in there, but we'll also announce it in our backer update that's going to come out soon. So watch for that. But yeah, we have a cool community. We'll have the devs hopping in there and talking with you, especially as we're getting more in development and everything like that. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed this. This is super fun. But yeah, we're gonna shut this off. So if you want to keep up chatting, if you want to keep hanging out with people, hop in over to the IRC channel, and you will have the best of times. So thanks again, and bye.